Okay, great. So, materials, the material mix variance. Now, with this, please, again, watch the video, but hopefully by watching this again, it'll confirm a few things. I think this is the easier of the two. If you look, I think it was an earlier question I did earlier on when I talked about you have the material cost variance, and that's broken up into price and then usage. And then you can take usage and break that up into mix and yield, right? And that's what we're doing here, mix and yield, just to understand why we have that difference. First of all, you can see that we're really dealing with things at the standard cost, because the price variance would have dealt with the changes in price and actual pricing. But we're dealing with, here we're looking at the mix. So, and our cost structure, our cost benchmark is really the standard cost. So these are the costs we're going to be using, the 4 and the 5. That's the standard there. Okay, great. Let's go into this. Now, the mix variance is saying you should, I repeat that, you should do things in a certain mix. Now, the mix here, it says that you use this cleaner and you should mix things in the ratio 30 liters to 20 liters. So A should have a mix, or this product should have this mix, if you like, of 30 to 20 or 3 to 2. So A 3B to 2, whatever you're doing, that's the mix. So we don't care. You go out there, it says actual output is 11,000 liters. So actual output 11,000 liters. So you should have A in the ratio, if you like, 3/5, right? And B 2/5. So 3/5 times 11 times 11,000 is 6,600. And 2/5 times 11,000 is 4,400. So that's how you should have mixed this. But what did you do? You went along and you mixed it, and you did 7,000. So this is actual. You did 7,000 of A, and you did 4,000 of B. So you can see with the mix variance, the total is always the same. We're just interested in the mix. A and that's B. So what's the variance? So what you've done here is that you've actually spent here, I'll just change my pen color, you've actually gone in and used 400 liters too much. So this is adverse, and here you have a 400 liters favorable, right? Because you've used 4,000 when you should have used 4,400. So that's kind of, so this was the budget, or this is the standard. Right. So again, like I say, the only reason you'd be using less of something is because it's expensive, and more of most of the time, more of the other is because it's here you're using less of it because you can see it's quite expensive. So you're thinking maybe I can use less of this and still get the same final product out. But let's just focus on the mix anyway. So what you now have is that if this is adverse and it's £4 a liter, we now have 400 times 4, which is 1,600, which is adverse. So you have 400 here times 5, which is 2,000 favorable. So overall, you have a £400 favorable variance, right? Overall. So in overall, as far as the mix is concerned, you have had a favorable variance. And so your answer there is B. So the argument is, what should you do? Get the mix that we expect, go to the actual inputs, the total, if you like, actual out. Well, when I say inputs, whatever it is that you were trying to make here, says actual output was 11,000 liters. Um, yeah, and that's what's gone in. So what mix? Well, imagine this was all alcohol. So you have 11,000 liters, if you like, here, and then find that combination, what the combination should have been according to the ratio and what it actually was, and then compare. And you should be able to work across to find your variances. So the answer there is B. Now, the final question here, this question of describe a flexible budget. Now, it might be in your reading, but I've talked about it before. A flexible budget really says to us, listen, what do you think would happen at 10,000 units? What do you think would happen at 12,000 units? What do you think will happen at 13,000 units? What do you think would 14,000 units? So this is something, and this could be materials and labor and fixed costs. So we're basically creating budgets at different levels of activity, assuming we say, oh, if the levels of activity change, So we're creating standards, if you like, or no, no, we're creating budgets, if you like, for different levels of activity, and that's why it really is related to the volume of activity. As that changes, we can create that right at first, just to see what would happen, if you like. So that's what a flexible budget really is. This is different to a flexed budget. A flexed budget sort of will have our standard. For example, it could have been 10,000 units, and then in reality we only really made actual units made in the end were really maybe 1,000 units, so we have to adjust. So the flex budget helps us to go from budget to standard, because we would have some standard cost. Maybe it's £5 a unit, so if for materials, so you were planning to therefore spend £50,000 here, but now this is going to be 5,000, because right, it's £5 a unit or £5 a kilogram or whatever. So this 5,000 becomes our flex budget. So that's the difference between the two, kind of adjusting it. But the flexible budget just understands or recognizes that I may be producing things at different levels of activity, and I need to kind of prepare these budgets at these different levels of activity, and then see what happens with what actually happens in the end, and then I'll end up producing a flexed budget then. So the answer here is A.